Music theory with OneNote. Compound intervals for intervals over an octave. Get ready and some coffee because although we're just playing with one note, it's a beautiful note. You're not required to, but if you have access to it and would like to follow along, we're currently in the OneNote file of Modal Node System, MNS Presentation 1256, OneNote Compound Intervals, Intervals over an octave. List of presentations. We plan on adding plenty more to them shortly. Also noting, within this OneNote presentation, we'll spend all of our time on the music theory side of things. However, we also have another presentation similarly numbered and named where we build these tables in Excel, practicing our Excel skills, our music skills, and table visualization at the same time. We're going to be continuing on with our interval practice. This time, we're going to be going in the clockwise direction or up in pitch over an octave, looking at a compound interval format, which means we can basically drop the notes. It's not the way I would prefer to do it, but it's what you might see in a textbook, and it's a little bit shorter because, again, you can kind of drop the notes if you compound the scale degree. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get a quick reminder of what we want to keep in mind so that the terminology, although not perfect, far from perfect, imperfect in many ways, doesn't throw us off from our objective, which is to visualize the fretboard as a map of the territory, having 7 continent locations on it, the non-continent locations of which there are 5 oceans. We go through to get to the continent location. We imagine ourselves in space above this low or heavy E string, the one closest to the ceiling. As we do so, we imagine the world of the fretboard spinning around. It is rotating like the Earth, like the planets. The planets are moving, but we just want to select a degree of rotation, typically selecting degree 4, which is the key of C and the related 7 notes, but everything would be the same if it shifted forward to the next note, C sharp, D, D sharp, and so on and so forth. So all of our intervals work over all of our collection of 7 notes, all 12 collections. As we do that, we want to keep in mind then the absolute continent names, not the note names, once we've got our degree of rotation, that being the Nashville number system, 1 2 through 7. So the Ionian is 1, the 3 is the Phrygian, the 5 is the Mixolydian, the 2 is the Dorian, and so on and so forth. Now remember that the scale degree system tries to pull us out of the optimal way to be visualizing the fretboard to be able to map out our territory, and that's what we want to keep in mind and not let it do that. Just like you don't let some crazy super progressive person, drive you crazy with crazy terminology, and you're like, dude, just tell me straight, how far is it from here to the grocery store? And they start implying all these weird things about, like, you look funny or something like that. And you're like, dude, okay, you have to remove all that stuff and just try to get the actual information that is somewhere hidden in all the weird terms that they're using that will actually get you to the grocery store. Because it's in there. It's just filled with a bunch of other garbage, right? You just got to remove all the other garbage. And like, okay, now I can distill it down to the actual directions. All right, so what we've done in prior presentations is we've taken our 12 notes, we picked the ones with our formula, the 7 notes we're going to work in, which is going to collection of notes related to the key of C by applying the formula of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. There's our 7 notes, and then we started to think about the intervals between all notes from any particular point, typically thinking about the C or Ionian node. And we saw that if there's 12 notes, we then have 12 different, or 1 through 11, plus the 0 that we're on, different steps or intervals, distances from any particular note before it repeats, before it goes up another octave. Now, the current system that we're using usually drops the note name and only uses the major or minor, because the major is what everything is based off, and everything else got kind of shoved into minor, and the perfects were also in the major, and so on. And then it's got the third, which is the scale degree. All the scale degrees are kind of off by 1 because they should have measured from 0, but they measured as a 1 in a scale degree system. So that's what we have. They usually drop the notes, which are kind of like the most important thing. So you just have to know if someone says it's a major third, that it's not, the third isn't 3 notes away. The third is the third scale degree, which actually means it's 2 modal half steps up from our 7-note collection because it's off by 1. And it actually means there's 4 notes up, even though they don't say 4, which is the most important thing. We just kind of have to know that. So that's, again, you're talking to someone in the grocery store. They're giving you coded language. They're implying all these things about you or whatnot, but somewhere in there, they've also implied the actual directions to the grocery store. So if you can decode what they're saying, then you might actually make it to the grocery store. That's what we have here. So then we said, hey, we could keep on going up in the positive over an octave. If we go up over an octave, then there's actually 2 units of measure that we're using. 1 unit of measure, if we add the notes, is the distance in notes. The other unit of measure is the distance in scale degrees. So my recommendation before was to say, hey, look, let's use the notes to help tell us whether we're going up past an octave, and then we'll keep the local distance for the scale degree. So I'll get into this in more detail in a second. But no, we also saw that we can go in the negative direction. Now, if I go in the negative direction, the scale degrees completely fall apart. So that means that the reason for that is because if I'm on this C, for example, if I'm on this C and I go forward, this, and I make that the 1, this next note is now the 2. It's the second scale degree, but it's actually only 1 modal half step, 1 note up from the 7-note collection in distance. The problem is if I go backwards from C backwards, you would think from a scale degree standpoint, you'd have to still make this the 1 or like the -1, right? And then this would be -2, which doesn't make sense because then you'd have to rename all the negative directions. So we don't have a good way to go counterclockwise because, again, the measuring system is, frankly, it's wrong, right? It's not the optimal measuring system. So when we went in the reverse direction, my recommendation is to add the notes of direction. I'm going -1, which I'm going to use the same interval as though I went clockwise around the block, even though I'm going counterclockwise. So the reason I point that out here, even though we're going clockwise, is that when I go clockwise past an interval, a textbook will typically then drop the notes and they'll keep on going clockwise. So in other words, if I have these same 7 notes and I go up an octave to like this 2, instead of going to this 2, I'm going to this 2. Instead of going from C to this D, I'm going to this D, which is another octave up. Well, I could count the notes between them and say it's another octave up, or I can continue with the scale degrees. If I make this the 1 on the scale degree, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this will now be the 9, the 9th scale degree. And that's what a textbook will typically do, which you have to do if you drop the notes. So if you drop the notes, how are you going to differentiate between going a major second and a 14 note away or a major second that's an octave higher? So from our analogy over here, notice if I go from this 2 to this 4, the distance is 1, 2. Now they're going to call it 1, 2, 3 because they made this the 1. But in any case, let's start the normal way. It would be 1, 2 like normal people would measure it. And then basically you go around the block. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this one would be the 9 instead of that one, right? If you measured properly. And you could see that, but instead of calling it, and you could see that as time. So I'm still going to say the local distance would be 2 away, 2 modal half steps away. But then to pop it off the page, to give it a 3D dimension, I would think about that as time. The time it takes to go around the block again to get back over here is the added octave. Now, it would be nice, the easiest way to do this if I went 1, 2, 3 is to say, hey, look, let me keep the 1, 2, 3 with the ocean in here, distance in notes, the note equivalent, and then I can keep the local distance in intervals, which would be if this was the 1, 1, 2, 3 this way, right? And the reason that's useful is because it's useful to see that something is like the major second. That gives me, I want to map out on the fretboard all of the relationships that have a major second relationship within my system. So even if it's going to be an octave higher. So this kind of gives the flavor, and then if you give the notes in distance, that also gives you the distance. But if you drop the notes, then all you can do is do what we have as a compound interval. So that's what you're going to see in a textbook oftentimes. Some people talk this way, more like jazzy people are more likely, I think, to use compound intervals. But it is a way to be more specific on the fretboard. It's not the way I would prefer to be more specific on the fretboard. And it still doesn't solve the problem because you can't go backwards that way. You can't really do a compound interval going in the negative direction because, again, although some people use negative intervals, negative scale degrees going backwards, most people don't because it gets all messed up. So that means you can't really have a compound interval going backwards. So the way to solve that problem to me is to actually list the notes that you're going backwards. But let's see how the compound intervals are going to work here. So let's say that we're going past 11 to a 12. So we go 12 note away and it's a perfect first. So again, I would like to call that a 12 note away perfect first, but they're usually going to drop the 12 and call it a perfect eighth because they're not going to say the 12, so it's going to be a perfect eighth. Now, most people kind of see that if you are go up an octave, but if we go down to the next one, now we have a 13 note away distance. So let's say we go a distance of 13 away. Let's map this out and say we're going to go from like let's say 13 notes away, we have to go from, that's going to be a minor second. So let's go from like the Locrian or the Phrygian. Let's go from like the Phrygian. Okay, so we're going to go a distance of 13. So the local distance would be what? 12, 13 minus 12 would be 1. So the local distance would be, let's say, right here. So that would be the local distance, but I want to go 13 up. So I could go by going 5 down this way and then 10 down this way because there's 5 notes between the strings, and this is where the fault line shifts up. So this tectonic plate shifted to the right. So 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we'd be up here. So I would like to call each of those a minor second. Most people would, because that gives you the distance between the Phrygian and the Lydian, the PY, or the 3-4 modal range will always have a minor second interval between them, which would be a minor first modal half step, minor second interval. But I still would like to distinguish this one from this one in some way as well to be more specific. I would like to say it's a 13 note away major second, or in other words, it's a 1 note away plus an octave, 1 note plus 12, 13 note away minor second. But if you drop the 13, you can't really say minor second because you have no way to indicate which one it is, which octave it is in. We will assume then it's within the 1 octave. So you'd have to say it's the minor ninth. So if someone says it's the minor ninth, how could you figure out that, what they're talking about within the local distance? You'd have to take 9 minus 7, which isn't too bad, which would get you to 2. So you could memorize all of the different distances using the compound intervals and be more specific. And again, you have people use that, but I still don't like it because when you go backwards, it falls apart. And I'd still like the most important thing to me, which is the notes. The notes are the most important thing. If you learn it by compound intervals, you're probably learning it by shape, but you might not be picking up the actual distance, which is important because you'd like to be able to actually count it out on the fretboard, count out the actual notes. All right, let's try another one. Ooh, that's a big eraser. I tried to change the size of my icons here. Let's say we go 14 forward. 14 forward, let's say we go from an Ionian this time. Go from an Ionian. 14 forward. What would be the local distance? It would be 14 is over 12, so it'd be 12. 14 minus 12 would be like 4 minus 2, or 2 forward. So it would be going to here. So if I start from an Ionian, it would be an ID modal range or a 1-2 modal range. But I want to go 14 forward. So let's change the color here. I'm trying to get more fancy with my tools. Change my color. And now I'm going to go 5, 10, 2, and then 13, 14. Wait a sec. Where was I? Now I'm going to go 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There we go. All right, so this distance here is still going to be an ID modal range. It's still a 1-2 modal range, but I would call it a 1-2 modal range and 12, meaning there's an added 12 between them. That also gives you direction because it's not a negative 12. So I would like to call it a 14 note away major second still. But if you drop the 14, so you'd have to call it a major 9 because this, and how would I know it's a major 9? Because you'd say, well, you kept on counting after 7 because there's 7 scale degrees, and so 7 plus 2 is 9. So if someone says something like is a 9, you'd have to take a major 9 minus 7 would be 9, 8, 7 gets me to, I'm sorry, it gives me 9 minus 7 is 2, which gets me to a major second, would be the general idea. So, and then you'd have to figure out how many notes away that is, basically. But because whoever's doing that is saying that is probably learning it by shape. That's what we tend to do on the guitar. So they're probably getting more advanced as a jazz player or something, right? And we're saying, okay, so now I'm going to memorize all of the shapes that are differences. It's still an ID modal range, but I want to have a different name for an ID modal range that has a, another octave between it. So I'm going to call that a major 9. But remember, if you're doing that, that's good. It's more specific, but it falls apart going backwards, and it doesn't really tell you the notes. If you're not in your practice seeing the note difference between the intervals, I think you're missing something on your practice where you could do it a lot more specifically. So I think the term words are important, right? Words matter, not because words matter in the way they should be, in that they should be specific, right? They should be specific so that you can actually define. They should be descriptive of reality, right? So you need to. So if I'm practicing, I'd like to say it's a 14 note away major second, because that's going to tell me as much information as I'm thinking about it in my head as I practice. Whereas if I say like it's a major 9th, it's faster, but it doesn't give me as much information. It doesn't give someone else as much information. And when I'm practicing, I want to know more. I want to know as much as I can in the smallest bit. I mean, this would be like if you go and order a coffee, but you don't say verbs or something like that because you're trying to say things fast. It's a minor 9th instead of saying, well, it's a 14 note away major second. Well, that's too long. I don't have time for that. Coffee, cream, money, stir stick, thanks, bye, right? I mean, you can get the information across without any verbs, but it's not very pleasant most of the time, and it could be kind of confusing if you try to go on like that for a long time. So I'd say, so what I'm thinking is add the notes. That's what I'm trying to get to, that rant by that rant. Let's do the next one. Okay, let's do the next one. We go 15, so we're going 15 up. All right, so 15 up is let's go from a minor this time. So let's go from like the Phrygian, we can go from here maybe, and we go 15 up. All right, so if we go 15 up, what's the local distance? 15 is over 12, but it's lower than 24, so we can go 15 minus 12 is 5 minus 2, 5, 4, 3. So 3 note away. So if I go up this way, it would be right here. Boom, I can do it that way. So that would be 1, 2, 3 notes up, 1, 2 modal half steps up, which would be the third, minor third. But I want to go 15 up. So if we go 15 up, let's change the color change. And so we can go, okay, that's going to be 5, and then the fault line is down here. So we go up. The tectonic plate has shifted, 5, 10, 11, 12, and then I could go to this one, 5, 10, and then down here to 15. Because this whole tectonic plate is shift, so I had to go up this way, but then there's not a fault line between these two because this is one tectonic plate, these last two strings. All right, So again, I could call this, I would like to call it a 15 note away minor second, because these are both, this is a PX modal range, a 3/5 modal range. This is still a PX modal range, a Phrygian Mixolydian modal range, a Nashville number system 3/5 modal range, and it has a local distance. Both of them have a local distance of 3 notes away, but this one, but you could say I drop the notes and say it's a major tenth, or a minor, sorry if I say minor tenth, right? It's a minor tenth. You could say that. And so if someone says it's a minor tenth, how do you get down to the local distance so I know what the flavor is? You're typically going to say 10 minus 7 is 3. So a minor tenth is like a minor third plus an octave. And so then I'd have to say, see if someone just tells you it's a minor tenth, what you typically, and you didn't know what that was, you'd have to say, okay, well 10 minus 7 is 3. And then if it's a minor third, I have to know that the minor third has 3 notes away. It's a 3 note away minor third plus 12 would mean it's a 15 note away. So it's a 15 note away minor third is what they're talking about basically. But it would be a lot easier if you just said it's a 15 note away minor third, because then you get the flavor of it's being a minor third, and you get the actual distance, and it works if you go in the negative direction, which this doesn't. This compound interval, like all the system is working as long as I'm on the guitar measuring from top to bottom. But I can't measure from bottom to top. I can't measure from the skinny strings to the heavy strings. Sometimes the skinny strings are sometimes the dominant thing that I want to make it. That's the thing I want to measure from, and but it's hard because why won't that erase? That it won't erase. Get out of here. Oh. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about because that stupid line was being stubborn. Let's go 16 notes away, and this one's going to be a major third. So let's take it from the Ionian, a major third. What's the local distance? Well, 16 minus 12 would be like 6 minus 2, 6, 5, 4 would be a 4 note away major third. So I can say 1, 2, 3, 4 would be up here. How many, wait a sec, is that 4? No, I don't think so. No, that is 4. It's, yeah. And so how many, how many modal half steps? It's 2 modal half steps, which means it's the 3rd scale degree, and it's a major third because it's 4 notes away. All right, but we want to go 16 notes away. So I would like to call it still a 16 note away major third. So I keep the flavor. But somebody might drop the 16 and just call it a major 10 because it would be 7 plus 3. So you're just counting the scale degrees up. So I could call it that. How far away? If someone says it's a major 10, then you could try to memorize, well, a major 10 is 16 notes away, major 10. But more likely you're going to have to say, well, it's a major 10th, so 10 minus 7 is a third, so they're talking about some kind of major third, and so it's a major third that's going to be another octave up. So usually a major third is 4 notes away plus 12, so 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then I can count it up, say, okay, that's going to be 5, 10, and then 15 going this way across the fault line, and 16. There it is, boom. So that is that one. So again, both of these, an IP modal range, a 1-3 modal range, Ionian Phrygian. This one also IP modal range, a 1-3 modal range, but this one is an IP plus 12. There's another octave in between it, which I would like to call a 16 note away major third because I can do that going forward, backwards. It gives me and others more information, but a lot of people will drop the 16 and just call it a major 10, which is kind of, I feel like it's snobby. I don't know, I'm just going to say it. I'm just saying because it's just not nice. It's not like, you're not saying the verbs. Like when you order the coffee, you say coffee, money, tip. It's even if you give the tip like that, tip, buy, right? It just, it sounds harsh. You know, you could add the verbs. It would be nicer. Anyway. So let's do the next one. We're gonna go down to, did I do 16? Yeah, we're on 17. So 17 note away. And what's the local distance? Well, if I go 17 minus 12 is 7 minus 2, 7, 6, 5. So it would be a 5 note away, which is typically a perfect fourth. 5 note away, perfect fourth. Boom. So let's go from the Ionian again. If we go 5 notes away, now if I go 5 notes away, I could go just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it would be here, it'd be an IY modal range, a 1-4 modal range, which has a distance of 5. It has modal half steps of 1, 2, 3, the third modal half step, which means it's the fourth scale degree. But I want to go up 17. If I go up 17, I would like to call it a 17 note away perfect fourth, keeping the local distance for the scale degree. But no, people are going to drop the notes and call it a perfect 11 when they go clockwise. You're like, all right, whatever, dude. That's what the textbook will do. So if they say perfect 11, I got to say, well, 11 minus 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is a fourth. So it's a perfect fourth, which has a local distance of 5 notes away plus an octave. 5 plus 12 is 17. So I got to go 17 notes up. So I can go 5, 10, and then 15 across the fault line, and then 16 and 17. Boom. So it's still an IY modal range, a 1-4 modal range, but plus 12 because it's an octave up. And again, I'd like to call it a 17 note away perfect fourth, because then, like, if it's like ordering the coffee, it's more likely that the coffee person will get the order right and present the coffee with love because you talked clearly, and then but you know, if you're in a rush, you remove the verbs. You don't say notes. You just say the scale degree. So here's the funny one. I made it red here because this one might actually be an augmented fourth or whatever when you count it up the way we did it here, because you would think that you could just keep on going up, and you can apply the same, like up here we called it a diminished fifth. So you would think that 6 plus another 12 would still be a diminished fifth, but because of the wacky system we have, it might be an augmented fourth. It's the only one that kind of happens on, because remember how the system worked. They made all of the intervals for the major scale, and then they picked out the 7, which was perfect. So they made it perfect, and that meant they had to make that meant this is the wrong one. The 7 note away perfect fifth. The 7 note away perfect fifth they had to make perfect. So that meant that they also had to make the inverse, which is a 5 note away perfect fourth, perfect. And then all of the other ones they made minor. But they couldn't make the 6 note away minor because they made the 7 note away perfect fifth a perfect instead of a major. So you end up with this diminished. So a diminished fifth, which if you keep on counting up, sometimes it's an augmented fourth if it's in the Lydian. So whatever, we're not gonna get too crazy on it here, but let's move on. So if it's 18 away, 18 minus 12 is like 8 minus 2, 8, 7, 6. So the diminished will be in the Locrian typically, right? So it's in the Locrian. So let's pick a Locrian one, and then so it's going to be then a local distance of 6. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's going to be an NY modal range if we start from the Locrian, or a 7-4 modal range. It's got modal half steps of 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's the fourth modal half step, which would mean it would be the fifth scale degree from the Locrian. Okay, but we want to go up 18. So I'd like to call it an 18 note away diminished fifth, but someone might drop the 18 and call it like a diminished 12th or something, or maybe it's an augmented 12th or whatever. But if they say diminished, I would think you could take the 12 minus 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which would be 5, and figure out that it's the diminished fifth. But in any case, if we say it's 18 up, it's going to be 5, 10, cross the fault line, 15, 16, 17, 18. So once again, also an NY modal range, a 7-4 modal range, and 12 plus an octave. So that would be the general gist of that one. The general gist of that one. I can't erase that because it's not part of the thing. Okay, let's do the next one. Let's get off the weird one. That one messed up my rhythm. All right, we're going to go to the next one. Say we're on a 19 note away. So if it's a 19 note away, then let's make this one from an Ionian again. So 19 note away. So 19 minus 12 would be like 9 minus 2, 9, 8, 7. So that'd be 7 notes away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would be like an IX modal range, a 1-5 modal range. And it would be 1, 2, 3, 4 modal half steps up, which would make it the 5th scale degree, perfect 5th. Okay. So, but we want to go 19 up. So I'd like to call it a 19 note away perfect 5th. But if they drop the 19, they're going to call it like a perfect 12th. If they say perfect 12th, you'd have to say 12 minus 7 is like 5. So it's a perfect 5th, which a perfect 5th normally has a 7 note away perfect 5th. But they want to go another octave. So 7 plus 12 would be 18. So I can say, all right, 18, 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. I didn't count that, right? Let's try it again. That's 19 notes away. 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Sorry about that. So I should have chosen to. So still an IX modal range, an Ionian Mixolydian, which I would like to call it a 19 note away perfect 5th. But no. If they drop the 19, you've got to call it like a perfect 12th. So you might hear that. It's not the term that I'd like to hear, but if you're the barista in the coffee shop, sometimes people will talk to you and they won't have any verbs, and you're like, okay, I can still make the coffee, even though you're talking crazy. All right. So let's do the next one. We're going to say it's a 20 note away. Let's do that from, if we're on the D, let's do the Dorian this time, because it's a 20 note away. Actually, the Dorian's probably not the best. Oh no, option. Let's try going from the Phrygian. Let's go from the Phrygian. Okay, so we're gonna say 20. 20 minus 12 would be like 10 minus 2, which would be 8 notes away. Can I go there here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would be like a PI modal range, a 3-1 modal range. Okay. Which I would normally, and it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th modal half step, which would be the 6th scale degree. So I would call, so that would be a minor 6. So that would be an 8 note away minor 6 for the local distance. Let's make this red. This red one makes me want to look up there all the time. But they want to go 20 up. So if I go 20 up, I would like to call it a 20 note away minor 6, but someone's going to say, no, it's just a minor 13. And then I got to go, okay, well, 13 minus 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is 6. So that would be a minor 6, which is usually 8 notes away. But then 8 plus another 12 would be 12 plus 8 would be 20. So I got to go 20 notes away from here. So that would be like 5, 10 across the fault line, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 right there. So it's still an IP modal range or a 3-1 modal range and 12 because it's plus an octave. All right, let's do the next one. You're running along on time, talking about coffee and stuff. We got to wasting time. You're going to see that in the comments. You're going to see the anger of the time wasting in the comments. You should be talking without any verbs so that you're not wasting our time. Just remove all the verbs. 21 minor 6. I can't do it. So anyway, we're going to say we go 21 up. So 21 is going to be a major 6 away. So let's go from the Ionian. So how far would that be in the local distance? 21 minus 12 would be like 11 minus 2, which would be like 9. So 9 notes away. So if I went down, this would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it would be like an A modal range, a 1/6 modal range. But we want to go 21 up, which I would like to call a 21 note away major 6. But no, someone's probably going to call it a major 13, which means we got to go, okay, 13 minus 12. 13 minus 7. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is 6. That would be a major 6, which normally has a major 6 has 9 notes away, plus another octave would be 9 plus 12 would be 21. And then I can count it out, 5, 10, and then 15 because I'm crossing the fault line to the other tectonic plate, 15, 20, and then 1. So that's going to be still an IA modal range, a 1/6 modal range, but it's and 12 because it's plus another 12 or whatever. Okay, let's try the next one. Almost there. We won't do the second octave all the way through. This big eraser doesn't work as good as the small one. I like the size. I kind of like it being big, but then it doesn't erase properly. What good is it to have the giant eraser if you have to put one little corner of the eraser for it to actually do its job? All right, let's say we go 22 up. 22 up. 22 up. Let's go from the Mixolydian this time. I could go from the Mixolydian, yeah, even though it's a major mode because it's going to be okay. So let's say we go 22 up. What would be the local distance? 22 minus 12. It's not up to 24 yet, so we're still only over an octave. So 22 minus 12 would be like 12. That would be like 12 minus 2, which would be 10. So it would be 5, 10. So here it is. It would be an XY modal range, a 5, 4 modal range for the local distance, but we want to go 22. So I'd like to call it a 22 minor 7, but no, they're going to call it like just a minor 14, which means I got to say, okay, well, 14 minus 7 scale degrees would be 7, the 7th. So it must be a minor 7th that they're talking about, which normally a minor 7th has 10 notes away, but now 10 plus 12 would be 22 notes away. So they must be talking about a 22 note away minor 7. So that would be a 5, 10, 15, 20 across the fault line, 21, 22. So this would be an XY modal range, a 5, 4 modal range, but plus or and 12 distance. All right, otra vez. Look at this giant eraser, but you have to put that little tip at the right spot or it does nothing. It's like the whole rest of it is just a handle. Someone needs to... I need to get into the eraser designing business, show them how to fix their problem. That's messed up too, but let me fix the music thing first. We're going to say it's a major 7 away. So if it's so now we're going to go, let's go from the Ionian. So now we're going to say 23 notes away. So 23, what's the local distance? 23 minus 12 would be like 13 minus 2, which would be 11. So that would be like 5, 10, 11. So that would be an IN modal range. If we start in the Ionian, a 1/7 modal range. But we want to go 23 away, which I would like to call a 23 note away major 7. But no, someone's probably going to call it just a major 14, which means we got to go, okay, 14 minus 7 scale degrees would give us 7th scale degree. So it must be a major 7 that they're talking about. But a major 7 is usually 11 notes away, but it's obviously another octave up. So it's going to be 11 plus 12, which is 23. So we must be 23. It must be a 23 note away major 7 they're talking about. That's what they're blathering about. All right. So we're going to say 5, 10, and then 15 across the fault line, 20, 21, 22, 23. So it's going to be it's still an IN modal range, a 1/7 modal range, but it's a 23 note away. It's an IN and 12 modal range. All right, that's the gist of it. That's the gist. I don't even know what gist is, but that's it. That's what the gist is. What is the gist? What is gist? That's gist. That's the gist right there. I don't get it. What is the gist? That's the gist. I'm pointing at it. All right. So if I go 14 up, if I go 24 up, then we can keep going, right? So I'd like to call the next one 24, would be a 24 note away perfect first. But they might call it a perfect 15. And if it's 15, just like with the notes, you know, if it's less than 12, it's within what I call the local distance, the normal interval. If it's between 12 and 24, because there's 12 notes, 12 plus 12 is 24. Therefore, if it's between 12 and 24, it's an octave up. And if it's higher than 24, then it's 2 octaves up if it's less than 36, right? And that's usually the range you'll have on the guitar. You're not going to have too much over that. You might go beyond that on the piano. But similarly, if they use compound intervals, then you're going to say there's 7 scale degrees. So 7 plus 7 would be 14. If it's higher than 14, then they've gone up 2 octaves. So we're going to say this one is higher than 14. So I'm going to have to say 15 minus 14, or 15 minus 7 minus 7, because there's 7 scale degrees, 7 notes. So that would then bring you down to a perfect first. And so this one's a 25 note away. So I would like to call it a 25 note away minor second. In other words, it would normally be a 1 note away minor second plus 2 octaves. 1 note away plus 12 plus 12. 1 note away plus 24, or 25 note away minor second. But they're probably going to drop the minor second, and they might call it just a minor 16, in which case you got to go, okay, 16 is over, there's 7. 7 plus 7 is 14. 16 minus 14 would be 2. So it must be some kind of minor second that they're talking about. And then you'd have to say, okay, the minor second is 1 note away. So it went 2 octaves up. So now we're going 12 plus 12 plus 1 is 25. See, it's kind of messy. That, again, it would be a lot easier this way. But if it's 26 note away, then I would like to call it a 26 note away major second. Again, 26 means that it's higher than 24, 12 plus 12. So from a note distance perspective, I can take 26 minus 24, which is 2. So it'd be a 2 note away, which would be a major second. But if they drop the notes and they just call it a major 16, then I got to say, okay, 16 is greater than 7 plus 7, or 14. Therefore, it's 2 octaves up. So then I'd have to say 16 minus 14 would be 2, so it must be a major second. And then I have to take the major second and know that that major second means that it's normally 2 notes away major second, and then add 2 octaves, which are now 12 notes away. 12 plus 12, or 24 plus 2, which is 26. You see how messy that? I mean, it would be a whole lot nicer to add the notes instead of compounding the interval. Compounding the interval for most, just does not seem like the most efficient way to say it, or the nicest way to say it. It's like talking to someone who spends too much time playing Scrabble, you know? It's like, just use a normal word, for crying out loud. You know, it's like 27 notes away. So if it's a 27 note away, then I would like to call it a 27 note away minor third. 27 is over 24, so it's 2 octaves up. So I could say 27 minus 24 would be a 3 note away, which would normally be a minor third. But if they just tell you that it's a minor 17 scale degree, compound interval, then you have to, okay, 17 is greater than 7 plus 7, or greater than 14, so it's 2 octaves up. So I have to say, okay, 17 minus 14 is 3, so it would be a minor third, which I know normally is 3 notes away, and this is 2 octaves up. So that must be 12 notes is in an octave. 12 plus 12 is 24, is 2 octaves up plus 3, and that's how I'd have to get to the 27. Okay? So that's like the idea of it. Now again, I really don't think, like when you're practicing yourself or when you're communicating, that the compound interval is the best way to go, because a lot of people don't use it, particularly on the guitar, because it doesn't give you like the flavor of the note that you're possibly most used to. It doesn't allow you to look at the distance between any like range, any modal range, like an IX modal range, and have the same distance, all the time, because it's going to have a different name if you're in a different octave, which gives specificity, but it also loses the ability to see the flavor clearly. And you can add specificity by adding the notes. And the notes will help you then to see the fretboard not just by shape, but by distance, so that if you wanted to count out the distance, you could. And also because these compound intervals just completely fall apart when we go in the negative direction, which if you add the notes, save us, right? If we add the notes, it saves the interval system so that we can at least find a way to make it work when I go in the negative direction. Now, some people, again, they might say, hey, I don't like that I have to say an extra, like that I have to say like the note, like an 11 note away major 7, when I could just say major 7. And these are people like when they text and they put the U in there instead of YOU, which I get if you're texting, okay? I'm not like putting people down that do that kind of thing. I'm just saying, like if you're talking, like you can use slang, but I don't feel like the slang is really used to shorten the length of what you're saying. It's for something else. It's just because you like the slang, yo. You know what I'm talking about, yo? You don't use the slang because it's faster. So I feel like adding the notes should not be a burden. It should be a benefit.